One of the final things that we would like to do with you in this portion of today's training is to talk about good and bad facilitation practices and to give you some tips and tricks of the trade for good facilitation practices. But before I get into some of that, I just want you to all think back to your experience in any course that you might have done, either as a participant or as a teacher. And for those of you that have acted as practical laboratory demonstrators or similar, think about some of the things that you've done that has aided students in engaging with the course, in learning some of the objectives or outcomes, and then to also think about what has been bad in that experience. So which activities or practices have been really terrible and have not helped you in your learning experience. And then I want you to think through these as a group and list 3 facilitation practices that you feel are good practices, right? And then I want you to post them onto Vula forums under good facilitation practices. But before you go ahead and do this, I just want you to know the difference between what it means to be a teacher and what it means to be a good facilitator for those that are completely new to this environment. So generally, what encompasses being a teacher is just that. Teaching, relaying information, lecturing or just giving heaps of information, telling a student about a topic or a concept. That is known as teaching. But now when you are facilitating a lesson or facilitating the learning experience, you are not so much giving information, but you are rather promoting engagement within the classroom between the participant and the teacher. And that is what your role will be as both the TAs and the sysadmins in these classrooms. You will be facilitating and promoting engagement between the participant and the trainer or us as the core team, right? So your main purpose there will be to help the student get to where they need to be in terms of the content of the course, but not necessarily teaching them the content of the course. So an example of a good facilitation practice would be that when a participant raises their hand to ask a question, you then stop, listen to this participant's question, and then try to guide them in the direction that will lead them to the best answer for that question, rather than just standing there and giving them the answer, right? A bad practice then, using the same example, would be a student raises their hand to ask a question and you just simply ignore that student because you don't have the time to answer the question, right? That's a bad facilitation practice and will not help that student to effectively learn the content. So think about some of your experiences and think about what are those good practices that have aided you as a participant or student in getting to the desired outcome of the course or learning a particular skill. Now think about that and then come up with just 3 good practices and let us know why you think they are effective or why they've been effective in the past. Just come up with a list and then post them into Vula forums. I will give you guys all about 10 minutes to do this, 10 to 15 minutes if you need that long. And then once you've done this, come back to the video and continue on with the rest of the lecture for this session, or this portion of the session. So I'm going to continue for now. I'm going to assume that you've all paused the video, done the little activity, and have now come back to listen to the rest of the video. And the rest of the video will be around some tips and tricks on what you can do to facilitate learning in your classroom. Now first, I just want to touch on active and passive learning. So passive learning is generally when somebody like me is standing in the front of the classroom and teaching you some content, whereas active learning is essentially learning by doing. So you are doing something, and by doing it, you are getting practice with the tools and learning some of the tricks and the tools of the trade, right? So I just want to start off with a little quote by Confucius. It's a very lovely quote that sums up exactly what we are trying to get across with this lecture. And that is, I hear and I forget, I see and I remember, I do and I understand. So when you are just telling a participant about a particular concept or a little bit of content, they tend to forget what they've learned. But once you show them something, they tend to remember what they've learned. But only by doing certain tasks will they understand what they've learned. right? So your role in all of this is to help them get to understanding, to facilitate the process from learning to understanding. Again, you are a facilitator. And we're going to give you some tricks on how to do that effectively within your classroom. The first trick, and one that some of you might be well versed in after doing some H3 Bionet training, are red and yellow sticky notes, or green and red sticky notes, right? So essentially what you would do is to have some sticky notes ready within each of your sessions and to pass them out to all of the participants that are taking that particular class, right? And essentially a participant will put the green or yellow sticky note onto their computer when they are okay, and they'll put the red sticky note up there when they need some assistance from the TA. Now, some students are desperately shy. They cannot interact, or they are very, very scared for whatever reason of raising their hands and asking for help. So this is a way that we can facilitate helping those students that need the help but are too shy to say that they need the help for whatever reason that might be. So what you will tell your students at the beginning of each session is to put the red sticky note onto their laptops when they need some additional help and don't feel comfortable raising their hands. And then to also just keep a green sticky note or a yellow sticky note on their computers when they are perfectly fine and comfortable. This means that you know as a facilitator who to dedicate some time to during the practical sessions or while the class is running in that particular classroom, and which students feel that they are okay with the content. And they can put this up and take it down throughout the session so that you know who to target when they might be struggling. So this is a cool little trick that we've used at quite a number of Bionet courses, and it works quite effectively, and it helps you, especially when there's a large class, allocate your time when needed most. So this is something that we will suggest you do in your classrooms, and please try to do it. If you have a very small class, this might not be as necessary, but for those that have more than, say, 7 participants, this is an ideal way to dedicate some time to those students that are struggling a little bit more than others. Then the other thing that we want you to always do is to take things as slow as is needed by your participants. When you are asked for guidance or assistance, try to just explain things to them step by step, very, very slowly. And just please be mindful that the way and the manner in which you speak to people and answer questions matters sometimes more than the actual answer that you're giving. A bit of kindness and sensitivity goes a very, very long way, particularly with those participants that are quite shy. So just remember that. You will demotivate your participants if you respond in an abrupt or a very rude or crass or abrasive manner. Your participants won't feel like they can come to you and ask for advice or guidance, and we don't want a situation where that is happening. And please remember, we often do ask participants to grade or rate their classrooms, to give us some feedback on what was good about the classroom and what was bad. And if you have been acting poorly within the classroom, we will pick it up, and we may not allow you to come back and act as a TA or as staff for the next iteration. So please just be mindful of the way that you answer participant queries and questions, and try to assist them as far as possible and as best as you can. We cannot ask you to do anything you cannot do, but where you can, please just do your best to do that in a very friendly manner as well. Now, one of the other tricks that we like to do with a lot of our training is to make a list of concepts or keywords as you progress throughout the course or throughout the session, and then write them on a whiteboard or a flip chart. You can also have little sticky notes like you will be using for the issues that might be coming up in the class, and you can actually have students write terms or keywords on there that they can then stick on the wall or on a flip chart. Then what you can do is to throw a little ball or soft object, preferably, to one of the participants, who'll catch the object, stand up, and pick a term from the list and explain its meaning or usage in a few sentences. So this is a good way to get participants to engage with the content if you feel that engagement is quite low. It's a way of picking, but not necessarily picking on a student, and getting them to get up and say what they understand. And then what you can do is then turn to other participants and say, well, do you agree with this? what do you think is not so accurate, or how can you improve on this explanation? And in that way, participants all get the opportunity to engage. What you can also do is throw an object or ball or something to a participant, or just simply point at them, get them to pick a term, explain it, and then to pick out the next person who will pick the next term and explain it. And in that way, you are again facilitating learning rather than standing there and teaching them the content. You are getting them to learn them actively on their own. And this is very vital for this course in particular. And this is a little trick that came from the link that we have here at the bottom. Please go ahead and check out that link if you want some more examples of tips and tricks that you can do to facilitate engagement and learning in your classroom. One of the other things, and this has been tried and tested in a multitude of courses, is to encourage the more advanced participants that may be more comfortable with the content to help the people that are sitting next to them or close to them. This way, you also physically do not need to help everybody, and we are getting participants to help each other, which is ideally what we want with this course. Again, don't munch in a bunch. Try to not have participants clump together, spread them out, get them to participate with other people in the classroom. We don't want any particular participant to feel excluded or left out. This is something very horrible that I've experienced myself a lot with very technical courses. You feel that you're not good enough, so you isolate yourself. So if you do see a participant isolating themselves, try to encourage the other participants to engage with this participant. Also, do not allow any participant to act negatively towards another. We all learn at our own paces and in our own way, and we must be encouraged to do so. So please do not make any participant feel that they are not good enough or not at the level of any other participant. We all have to start somewhere. Please remember that, and help those participants that might be a little bit weaker, or not necessarily weaker, but a little bit less versed in the tools, to engage a little bit with everybody else, and get those more advanced participants to again go and engage with those participants that need a little bit of extra help. We are forming a community, and we want a very high level of team spirit in the classrooms. So do your part in ensuring that this kind of situation does not happen. If you want some more information on instructor training, some good tips and tricks or tools for engagement, we've just listed a few links here that you can go and look at after this session has ended, to give you some more guidance. And it would be well worth your time to go and read up on some of these, because they might give you some inspiration for what to do within your classroom. Now, I want you all to take just a 15 to 20 minute break, and then you will all sign on to Adobe Connect for the live session with Gerrit, and we will see you all there.